guys, my name is Carlijne and welcome to my May reading wrap up. I read a whopping 10 books this month, which is insane because I literally had school and work as well. So I don't know what I was doing, but I wasn't doing anything productive besides reading. So let's go through them. The first book I read this month was Daughter of the Siren Queen. This is the second book in the Daughter of a Pirate King series, and I loved the first book in the series so much. It was so bad and so it was the corniest fantasy book ever with all of the basic tropes, and I ate it up because I deep down inside I love those books and I live for those books, and those books are the reason I got back into reading. The first series I read while I was trying to get back into reading was Shadow and Bone, which again, so corny, so basic, but just overall incredible and amazing. So deep down inside, I'm a corny fancy girly. So this series is literally incredible and amazing and everything I was looking for. This was the second book in the series. I enjoyed the first book more, which kind of doesn't really happen that often. It's a lot of the times with series. Also, on Goodreads ratings, the first book is rated lower than the second or third book because you're already invested into the character, so this book should have been better. But for some odd reason it wasn't, because there was a lot of tension and a lot of build-up, but in my opinion it really led to nothing. I felt like the chemistry was just gone. It was overall, I don't know, the vibes weren't there like they were in the first book. And the ending of this book also felt kind of rushed, and I just wish we got a little more time with Alosa and Raiden together. So yeah, 3.5 stars. I enjoyed this book. I would recommend the series to you, especially if you're a corny fancy girl like me. Then I read Dawn and Dusted. This is the first book in the Rebel Blue Ranch series. And this was my first cowboy romance. And let me think. Let me gather my thoughts. I liked this book, but the male protagonist in this book said the word sugar so often that I wasn't sure whether I was reading a cookie recipe or a romance novel. There is no reason. And in the beginning he said sugar once, and then all of a sudden it was sugar, sugar, sugar 3 times on every single page. And it felt unnatural at that point. At first it was oh, he calls her sugar sometimes. Cute, I can get behind that. But 3 times on every single page? No. Shut up. There's a limit, and you've reached it. New drinking game. Take a shot every time the author mentions the word sugar in this book. You'll die of alcohol poisoning. It was insane. It was too much. But I liked the book. I liked the storyline. I liked the best friend's little brother trope. I actually really enjoyed the cowboy part of it. I rated the book 3 stars because, again, I did enjoy it. But if sugar, really? That's the best you would come up with? Then I read The Housemaid's Secret, which is the second book in the Housemaid series, and the third one is coming out this June, and I'm very excited for this because this book was another big slay. I don't know how Frida McFadden does it, and I'm so glad that I finally hopped on the Frida McFadden train because her books are incredible. They're so fast-paced and so interesting. Once I start the book, I can't stop, and I need more books like that. So if you have any recommendations for me, leave them down below in the comments because I am just eating Frida McFadden and her books up right now. In this book we follow the same characters in the first book in the series. There was just so much suspense, and it's such a great book series. Definitely go read the series if you haven't. And I think I rated it 4 stars. Let me check actually. I actually rated it 5 stars, and I read it in a day. Shit. I also love that it's about rich people, because in this book you follow a nanny and a housekeeper. Goes to nanny and housekeep in rich people, their homes, and all the rich people are fucked in the head, and that's literally all I've ever wanted in a book. Go read it. Then I read The Mistake, the second book in the Off Campus series by Elle Kennedy. I enjoyed this book so much, and Elle Kennedy is genuinely a wizard when it comes to writing cute hockey romances. However, I did not enjoy this book as much as I enjoyed the first book, which is The Deal. I liked Gracie and Logan, their dynamic. It was just nothing will ever top Garrett and Hannah. I could get married with the love of my life, and yet our chemistry could never top Garrett and Hannah. And as you know, if you've read this book, it was kind of a slow burn. Grace was playing very hard to get. And again, I enjoy a slow burn from time to time, but this was just kind of a petty slow burn, if you will. I also enjoyed Logan's storyline with his father. I actually started reading and finished the third book in the series, and you see a lot from them together as well in that book, which I really enjoyed. But I don't know, it just didn't have the same spark and the same vibes as the first book, but it's still a great book nonetheless. I rated it 4 stars. Go read the series as well if you haven't, because you will kick your feet and giggle, and that's all you need. Then I read The Villa by Rachel Hawkins. This is the second Rachel Hawkins book I read. The first one I read was The Heiress. I've talked about that book multiple times on my channel already, and I loved it. Definitely go read that. And because I loved that book so much, I was very excited to read this book. But it just did not hit the same. In this book you follow Emily and Chess, and they used to be best friends, and then it kind of fell out, and then Emily went on to write like one best-selling series, but she's just not really feeling the spark for it anymore. And then her friend Chess ended up being this very like famous health influencer, self-help author, book girly. Then they go on a vacation together in Italy in a villa that's called Villa Estos. I'm 100% jinxing the name, I'm sorry. But in 1974, in that very same villa, a rock star and like his girlfriend and some other people were in that villa, and the rock star ended up dying, and one of the other girls in the villa ended up writing a best-selling novel. But the villa has a very rich history. Emily's very interested in this, so she kind of goes digging around. In this book you follow 2 storylines. You follow Chess and Emily, and you follow like the past in 1974 with the rock star and the author and how everything went down there. I've heard people say that they didn't like the perspective of the 1974 rock band drama. That I was like, I'm gonna actually love that part the most, and then I read it and I was like, I actually hate that and I don't care, which is such a waste and such a shame. But for some reason I just could not get invested into their storyline at all. I was, however, very invested into Emily and Chester's storyline, and they were so toxic to each other, and I love like toxic friendships portrayed in books because it's so interesting to see. Because when I have a toxic friendship, I am blind, I can't see shit. But when I'm reading a book about a toxic friendship, I can see all the red flags. So maybe it's because it's therapeutic or from past traumas, but I love it when there's just a little bit of toxicity in a friendship or in a relationship. I ended up rating this book 3 stars because I liked the book and I love Rachel Hawkins' writing style, and I was very invested into Emily and Chester's story, but it just did not hit the way I thought it was gonna hit. This month the Idea of You, the movie, came out, so I was like, I'm reading the book first. So I read the book first, and I cringed a lot whilst reading this, because multiple times throughout the book and also throughout the movie, but the movie, I'm gonna go on a tangent about that later because the movie and the book were so different. In this book, you have a 40-year-old mom, and she goes to an August Moon concert with her daughter, her 12-year-old daughter, and August Moon is kind of inspired by One Direction, and the male protagonist in this book, Hayes Campbell, is inspired by Harry Styles. So it's basically a Harry Styles One Direction fanfiction, except instead of written by a teenage girl, it was written by her mother. Do with that what you will. But anyway, they go to an August Moon concert, they have fun, they go backstage because she has VIP passes, and Hayes and the mother, Solène, end up really vibing together. And then they kind of end up meeting each other around the world to go, you know, I mean, there's a 20-year age gap, but if I'm gonna be honest, for frat boy Harry Styles, I would do everything. And throughout the spicy scenes, a lot of the times he says to her, you could have been my mother. No, with British accent. Shit. You could have been my mother, but I'm not. But you could have been. Ill? No. And then when the daughter found out via like paparazzi pictures, Harry Styles, aka Hayes Campbell, and Solène came into her room, sat down on her bed, and were like, hey, you know, I know it might be weird for you, but I love your mother. If frat boy Harry Styles came into my room whilst I was crying in my bed to tell me that he's fucking my mother, I would have killed myself right then and there. There is no coming back from that. And here's the problem. In this book, you see a lot of the bad sides about the relationship, and there's a lot more that's like, ooh, we shouldn't do this because it's weird, and I could have been your mother, and the age gap, and for my daughter it's not good. But in the movie, it's all rainbows and sunshine. Let's just say that the movie definitely romanticized the relationship a lot more than the book did. I rated this book 3 stars. And my Goodreads review was, imagine shaving your coochie and going to a One Direction concert with your mom, and then your mom ends up fucking him. I would never recover. Then I read Killjoy by Holly Jackson, and I'm just so excited for the A Good Girl's Guide to Murder series to come out. I recently bought it, and I was like, I can't wait to read this, and I am going to read it now. And I was also very scared that this book was going to put me in a slump because of the headache that it gave me. So I read this book as a quick, cute little read with characters I already know and love. It delivered perfectly. This book takes place before the events of A Good Girl's Guide to Murder, and I thoroughly enjoyed this book. Clever writing, just fell in love with the characters all over again. There's also a lot of foreshadowing, which I loved, and I rated this book 4 stars. Then I read The Woman in Me by Britney Spears. This is Britney Spears' memoir. I did not know a lot about Britney Spears' life before going into this. I obviously knew some of her famous songs like Toxic, Slave for You, Give Me Baby One More Time, that type of stuff. And I knew she shaved her head, and that's kind of it. And also that she kind of went crazy on TikTok and posted a lot of weird videos about her spinning around. But that's kind of it. So going into this, I had no idea about her upbringing. I also did not know she had a relationship with Justin Timberlake. Whoa. But I enjoyed this book. It was written kind of diary-y. It was just not the greatest writing I've ever read. It was also written by a ghostwriter, I'm pretty sure. It was very interesting to read about her life and about the events that we all know about, and to see what actually went through her head throughout these moments. Britney has lived an incredibly complicated life, so if you want to know more about that, definitely do read this book. I ended up rating this book 4 stars. Then I read Yours Truly by Abby Jimenez, and I'm not kidding when I say that I would do anything for Abby Jimenez at this point. Her writing is so incredible, and her characters are so complicated yet lighthearted. It is the perfect balance that every romance book should have. The pace is quick, the characters are all so likable, there are some serious topics at hand, but also just lighthearted fun. She could never disappoint me. This book is the second book in the A Part of Your World series, and in this book we follow Brianna and Jacob. They are both doctors at the same hospital, but Jacob recently transferred and nobody really likes him yet. And then because Jacob ends up saying the wrong thing to Brianna because of his anxiety, he writes her a letter to say like, oh, I'm sorry, this and that. And then they end up exchanging letters, which is just so cute and fun and cutesy dootsy. And the letters are great. They have a lot of chemistry. I rated this book 5 stars, and there is just no other rating for it. Incredible. Go read this. The cover is hideous, so maybe buy it on Kindle, but do definitely read this. And last but not least, I read The Score by Elle Kennedy. This is the third book in the Off-Campus series. In this book you follow Dean and Allie. Allie is going through a breakup with her boyfriend Sean. She stays over at like Garrett's place, which is Hannah from the first book, her boyfriend's place, and she stays over there because Sean like kind of invites himself to go over to her dorm to talk about it, but she doesn't want to. So because she wants to avoid him, she goes over to Garrett's place, but if Garrett isn't there, Dean is actually there. So they kind of end up hanging out. Allie doesn't really do casual relationships, so she's like, oh, what did I do? But Dean is like, oh my god, he's like falling for her. And I love it when a man falls first. Elle Kennedy is just writing those books with a glitter gel pen. Go read this series if you haven't already. I will promise you, you will get shits and giggles from it. Thank you so much for watching this video. If you enjoyed it, please like and subscribe. I would really appreciate it. Go follow me on any of my socials if you haven't already. They are linked down below my bio. If you have any book recommendations, leave them down below in the comments. I am always down for buying new books and reading about your guys' opinions. Thank you for watching. I hope you have a great day. Bye, loves. Period.